really weird dreams overnight, but I don't remember anything about them. I just know that it was weird. Just watched a bit of a live stream of a dude who has done everything from auto repair tutorials, tool reviews, political comedy skits. He's doing live streams. He's not monetized. He's just talking. And giving advice on gardening these days. And it was just a general conversation about self-sufficiency and staying away from trutherism and people. Basically, his thing was like, you guys are on YouTube looking for stuff to watch. You're looking for truther videos. You need to be looking for gardening videos and self-sufficiency videos. And I agree. And so then his stream ended, and I'm scrolling, and I'm looking at all the other garbage that's coming along, and a few things that are interesting here and there, cultural content. So right now there's some hoopla, uproar. People on social media are supposed to chant one direction or the other about Biden saying trust the Taliban, and I imagine what's going on is that these dudes are smiling, holding their American materiel that the military didn't get rid of, as they're allowing everyone with an American passport to leave. And that sounds all fine and good and civil. They're chanting death to America while they're doing it in Arabic or Pashtun or whatever their local language is. Might be Urdu. And what they're not saying is, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. What they're not mentioning is, like, oh, that thing that you saw with the people and the bodies, the dying, that was like 4 or 5 days ago or however many, and it was actually like 2 or whatever. And so the thing is, none of those were Americans. The people falling off the airplanes, not Americans. The dude who got caught in the landing gear and his corpse was flapping and they got it on video, not an American. In their withdrawal, they're only going to be looking out for Americans. That means the Afghan people are entirely on their own. They had tens of thousands of people working with them trying to build a different country, something other than what the Taliban had. The Taliban took over. Supposedly Afghanistan was like Iran, that it was actually before all of this hardline shit moved through the region, that it was a fairly liberal society, that not in a left versus right sense, that, women didn't have to wear face coverings. Everybody was still a freaking Muslim. Equality rights and whatever, and only in the last 75 or 80 years have these places been emirates like that. They had royalty that ruled, but it's like which house was running which countries changed. And in the case of Iran, theirs became basically theocratic rule when the Shah was overthrown. But from what I understand, the original overthrowing of the Shah was, what was it, that the Shah was basically installed by foreign governments to rule that country, and either he was overthrown by the people or by another. I don't know what happened. I'm not like up on that, but it turned into this theocratic nightmare, and at some point the Taliban took over as well in Afghanistan. That these guys were, I think, the descendant of what happened in the 80s against Russia. And we have once again fortified these guys. They're not looking to take over anything anywhere. They're not looking to do anything anywhere. I'm sure that what they are looking to do is reclaim all of that country for their territory and set up some sort of a caliphate, which will lead to a theocratic nightmare. And what that also means is that all of the people who, for better or for worse, helped out to attempt to set up this central bank dominated Western style government in Afghanistan almost overnight, without any cultural change, without recognizing the fact that the people there were very out of touch with the rest of the world, had no damn clue what the rest of the world is about, and did not take anything seriously. They're not going to be able to overcome a bunch of Taliban who now have modern American military rifles and such. You're supposed to destroy that before you leave in the military, and they didn't. That's kind of the big thing. So when the president or anyone on the news or anyone anywhere that is justifying the way things have gone there, trying to say that things have normalized, or no, they're letting all the Americans go. Yeah, they're letting all the Americans go. And there is a small city or county's worth of people, American-wise, throughout several cities in Afghanistan that, if they haven't already, they are going to be rounded up and executed. And one of the other things that's going through the mainstream cycle is certainly on the right side of things. On the left side, I'm not sure what's up. I think they're getting into that, yay, we're out of Afghanistan finally, but at what cost? And it's going to end up justifying going back in or something. I think it was designed to do that. On the right side of things, they are talking about Afghan war vets feeling like the whole thing, like, okay, great, after that we served for nothing. We fought and our brothers died and whatever. And okay, but remember the cause of the war. The cause of the war was to go after the one guy that they've specifically blamed a particular attack on American soil on. And they effectively overthrew the Taliban and began nation building immediately, because it was claimed that that dude was hiding out in their mountains. Remember that shortly after this, the move to invade another country based on the claim that they had weapons of mass destruction, that there was obvious evidence, it was clear. And then they went in and they overthrew the entire government and began nation building immediately and found no weapons of mass destruction. Meanwhile, over in Afghanistan, it takes them a while to make any kind of headway and truce with the Taliban. These dudes are fierce. Afghanistan is very quickly becoming the most costly in terms of casualties war, and possibly monetarily as well. This is before it reaches the 10 years mark. This is a 20-year-long military engagement. 20 years have passed. Something was pointed out last night on Timcast IRL. I can't remember who said it, but maybe it was Tim. One of the two people they showed falling from an airplane in the video was 19 years old. This person was trying to get away from what the Taliban were going to reinstate because he had literally been born after the nation building had begun. He had only experienced a pseudo-enforced, pseudo-Western style government and culture, and chose that way out rather than stay and get executed or have to live under it. It's kind of important to see what they're going to do, whether they're going to just sit back, whether they're going to temporarily sit back, formulate a plan, and work on overthrowing the Taliban from within as their own country, or is it simply just going to become fucking Taliban Disney World? Now, it ended up finally, there was a Pakistani, I think she was a prime minister. She was the first female to be elected to that position in a country that was very male dominated. She ended up being assassinated. But before she was assassinated, like a year before, she'd given an interview. And I think it was on like Al Jazeera or something. And in this interview, she spoke in English. And in this English-speaking interview, she referred to the person who had shot Osama bin Laden. And I believe this was like 2005. I think it was 2009 or 2011, somewhere in that area, that they claimed that SEAL Team 6 found him and killed him and buried him at sea, which means they threw the forensic evidence of a corpse of the world's greatest terrorist into the ocean for fish to eat. Whereas with Saddam Hussein, if that was actually him that they captured and hanged, that the video kind of proves that the guy was hanged. I think that might be real. Marvelous security to be able to not stop someone from secretly videotaping and releasing that. And again, no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And the only ones that he ever would have had would have been ones that we sold him. So in Afghanistan, when they finally did get bin Laden, he was in fact in Pakistan. But we didn't invade Pakistan. But I'm pretty sure he was in Pakistan the entire time. Oh, and also, the guy bin Laden that they were searching for is a Saudi and a noble of some sort. All the Al-Qaeda guys were from there, not from Afghanistan. They were just supposedly hiding there, even though they were really in Pakistan. I think they want you to forget those things. So what will the history books say about why we were in a country for 20 years? Will they mention that opium is the primary cash crop in that country? That it grows very well there? That the military and private contractors had basically secured the entire poppy crop for their own? Now, without having to explain the connecting points, you should be able to see how Big Pharma would have an interest in Afghanistan. Big Pharma has an interest in everyone's health and safety these days, don't they? So, is it possible that in leaving Afghanistan, assuming we stay out, leaving Afghanistan, will Big Pharma lose their opiate source? Because the Taliban are pretty anti that. If Big Pharma loses a source of its medication, is it going to lose profits? If it loses profits, is it going to cease to be able to lobby the government to do what it's been doing? At that point, will a different industry that has a stranglehold on a particular material that is of great value and they've got a market built for it take over and become the next in charge to dominate everyone? Right now, Big Pharma is the top of the pyramid, but they weren't always. That's my point. Military defense contractors have always been at or near the top. Communications companies thought they were at the top. I think they've sunk. I think with Big Pharma overtaking them, you remember Big Oil used to have the top for a long time. It's the whole reason the excuse for Afghanistan was to get into Iraq. So remember that from at the start of this, that they're going to talk about how the Taliban are not hassling any Americans. They're being friendly, but they're chanting death to America, and they're allowing them to leave. This says nothing whatsoever about the Afghan people says nothing about whether the fact that they're being so friendly and allowing people to leave is so that they don't give them an excuse to come back in so that they can actually leave. And once they're actually gone, have full reign over that country in the harshest possible way, which sucks. So what we're going to watch is one of the parts of the cradle of civilization. Will those people stand up? Or will they just be controlled? And that country will just be this place that nobody goes. And if you live there, sorry. Guess we're going to find out. Now, these events will affect the economy. They will affect prices of things in some ways. They will affect how the stock market is doing, how other businesses are performing, and those things all have indicators that affect other things. On the other side, a 20-year-long military engagement has or should be ending if it hasn't already. People who are old enough to have kids, that are old enough to have a kid, having served in that military theater, that is an absurdity that can be. The freedom thing was a sham. They half-assed it. I think they threw money and weapons at the Taliban the whole time, just to keep them at bay. And they have made a killing on the opiate market. And the thing is, once America is gone, if China decides to offer aid to Afghanistan and they take it, China will not be in good faith, obviously, but what China will also do is manipulate Afghanistan to where all of the opium goes to China, who are the makers of fentanyl. It's kind of ironic that the whole, hundreds of years ago, China and opium and everything that went on, and now they're pushing fentanyl on the world. The synthetic opiates still require some type of opioid to begin with, and so you still need something like an opium plant, like a poppy, to be able to start with to get to your chemical analog by changing it. You don't just mix a bunch of powders together and get fentanyl. Unless one of those powders already contains morphine or codeine, I believe. So China having that will be deleterious, to say the least. And they had a military advantage having our forces in a country that basically touches the other side of Iran from Iraq. They had both sides of Iran. Don't think about that until you really look at the map. You realize that there was this one country they've been antagonizing the whole time, whose government, as far as I knew, existed to begin with because we installed it. Whether it grew wild or not, I don't know. And that country, on either side of it, is Iraq and Afghanistan. So, what spurred me to even make this video is the idea that the vets are complaining about the war being invalidated, and I don't believe it was valid to begin with. We should have never been there. We should have never been in Afghanistan or Iraq. And the advancements and changes to policy that transferred from president to president as a result of being in those places has resulted in a lot of death in what could possibly be considered war crimes. And I mean, some of the countries that they got into, you hear that Obama expanded it from 2 to 7. He added 5. And one of those was Libya, where they not only were able to poison the culture to overthrow the government, but now that the government's been overthrown, what rose up in its place has a thriving slave trade. It's a direct result. That is a consequence of these illegal wars, nation building, half-assing it, and then picking up and leaving. So that's all I got. This is going to upload when I get to work, and yeah, I hope everybody has a good day. I know it's a heavy topic, but it only somewhat affects your reality unless you are related or are someone who has gone there. In which case, I bear no ill will, but we should have never been there to begin with. Thank you for your service, but wars for territory and resources are not justified. I'm sorry.